All right, so today we've got the top 21 questions for boat care and maintenance. We're going to be talking about cleaning non-skid, stains, sea deck, everything that's not on the gel coat, as well as 21 other questions that anybody could know. We've got Andrew with Ace Marine Detail here. He's down here in Marathon. Let us know a little bit about yourself, and then we can start our first question.
I'm Andrew Ellis. I'm the owner of Ace Marine Detailing. We're located here in the Florida Keys, providing boat and yacht service. So we do cleaning, restoration, and pretty much making sure that we provide a service to keep vessels pristine.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, all right. So Ralph A. Rodriguez says, can you remove a vinyl decal and polish the fiberglass without leaving a shadow of where the old decal once was?
Well, one thing you do have to take into consideration is that the surface where the decal was is going to be fresh. So once you remove it, it's going to be raised it a little bit because over the period of time, deterioration from polishing, and then also that air is going to be fresh. So in order to blend it, it might require some sanding. You might be able to get away with doing a compound or a really light polish that can cut aggressively. But you have to just assess the surface. But yes, you can remove the shadowing.
Enjoying this episode. This was a really fun episode with Andrew at Ace Marine Detailing down in Marathon. We want to also thank our show sponsor for bringing you this content, talking about care and boat maintenance. You can get all of your care and maintenance items that you need at partsview.com, and you can even save up to $50 when you use the coupons and the link in the description below. So next time you need to get anything for your boat, you can check them out at partsview.com. And now back to the episode. Yeah, that's funny that you said that because I didn't even think about that. Knowing that, gel coat deteriorates from sun oxidization, I didn't even think about that's part of the reason that shadow's there is because it's like raised up where the gel coat around it's like no longer there. That's funny. I didn't even think about that. So what kind of sandpaper, if you're gonna you take the decal off and it's raised up a little bit, what do you use, like 1,000 grit, or what do you?
So depending on how old the vessel is, you want to do an assessment of the surface. And, obviously if it's a newer boat, that means the decal was on there for a short amount of time. The longer the decal's been on the boat, you might have to, start at a lower grit. You can always usually start, 800 to 1,000. I wouldn't go below because that what's going to happen. You're going to remove too much material. And you can sand it to a certain point. Then you can start doing your cutting. And you'll start to see a difference in the clarity. And if there is any more additional work that you need to do, you can just assess it as you go. But you can remove the shadowing. Yes.
Awesome. What do you think would be the age? Like, do you think there's is there an age to it, or just depends on where the boat is? Like, I'm thinking so if you got like a 20-year-old boat, or if you got a 10-year-old boat, you think there's an age there, or is it just straight up? How much sun has the thing gotten, and what's that situation?
Yes, age plays a factor, but also just the surface that you're working with. So gel coat versus paint. There's factors that come into play whenever you're talking about removing shadowing. Sometimes you might not even be able to remove the shadowing 100%, but you can get it to a point that you'll feel comfortable. And then when you do your polish and then you seal it with the wax, the shadowing will be there, but not as apparent. Versus sometimes you might be able to remove it 100% to where you can't even see it at all. But you do have to remove layers upon layers of the gel coat to make it blend evenly.
Right. So that's funny. Now paint. Paint. How long do you think it takes? I'm sure paint lasts a lot longer than gel coat because gel coat's way more porous than paint.
Depends on the type of paint. When we talk about paint, it could be I would say. Was it all grip, all craft? Most of the boats have different types of paint. Gel coat obviously is more forgiving and more durable paint. You're working with a very thin layer. So if you have a decal on paint, yes, you can remove the shadowing, but you have a very thin layer to work with. A parent gel coat, gel coat's more durable and tough, so you can sand and buff it. It's a little more forgiving. Paint, minimal room for error.
Yeah, if you start sanding on paint, all of a sudden you ain't got no paint there.
No paint left. So yes,
your shadowing is going to be the least of your
That's
worries.
it. That is it.
That's too funny. So all right, and then we got TB Tim. Mr. IB Tim, he says, I'd like to know about detailing the things that aren't fiberglass. Window glass, acrylics, stainless trim, and aluminum. The small things. What tools and compounds are you using for polishing and sealing? Let's talk about the window glass first.
First start off with doing, decontamination. You could do your vinegar wash, whatever the case may be to prep the window to get it to that point, tape it off. And then the most common tools are needed. You could use a buffer, either orbital, that's most common, rotary, either or. It's just based on preference. And then foam pad is going to be, usually a common option. And as far as polish, usually a very light polish. You're dealing with glass, you can go heavier, but depending on what you're removing on the glass, you can just go through, either 1 or 2 steps. I personally don't do a lot of glass polishing, but based on my knowledge, when I do polish glass, the best results I've always gotten is using a foam pad. A foam pad and, orange foam pad. And that is able to remove, any minor scratches. And then if you have like staining on the glass, that you might get from hard watermarks and stuff like that. Polishing the glass will remove the contaminants because it's contaminants. So that's the best way to remove the contaminants is by polishing it with a foam pad and then a polish of, they have different types of polish that is up to you on, what you want to use.
Based on the brand or whatever.
Based on the brand and stuff like that.
And you're just taping off like the rubber seal and stuff.
Correct.
To keep the pad and
correct
messing it up.
From keeping, so you want to tape off your area. So if you're working on the glass, usually around the glass you have rubber and you don't want to contaminate your foam pad with the rubber. And then what happens if you don't tape it off, then you're going to smear that all over the glass as you're working, creating more of a mess than doing good. Yes.
That's funny. So now that hard water, like I've seen that where like, or think about like showers. People who got the showers, you got real hard water.
Build up.
Calcium build up into that. Down here in the Keys, we got
it's a common issue.
Calcium in the water or lime or whatever it is.
Yes.
So you really have to. Is there different pads? Like, do you got to start with an abrasive pad and then go to a polishing pad? Or?
Well, they have different types of pads. More aggressive and then less aggressive, depending on how severe and how far you need to go with it. That'll play a factor. But usually, for the most part, if you get the glass clean, most of the boats or vessels we deal with, what we fight a lot is with the salt and the hard water spots, and we do a good thorough decontamination wash first. And then we'll polish the glass, and it just turns out beautifully.
Gotcha. So then he's talking about, what about acrylics? I mean, that's super popular now. Everybody's got an acrylic dash put in.
Yes.
And it's kind of like...
Acrylic is beautiful. However, anytime you're dealing with acrylic, you'll find yourself having to always either use brand new rags, and even as much as just touching the acrylic with your finger or your hands, you can leave that oil and residue behind. So... acrylic, you can also polish it, and preference is, using a wool pad because the wool pad leave a really nice finish and remove any like holograms or any type of imperfections that are there that are minor. Right. If it gets deep into the acrylic, then, sometimes there's very little you can do, but for the most part, to give it that nice shiny finish, polishing with a foam pad is going to be the best option. And then, depending on how aggressive you need to go, they have the different colors, to remove scratches, and then the finishing for the polishing, and gives you great results. Is
that just any regular like 3M cutting compound, or you got to use a special polish?
As far as polish and compounds, it's a preference. They have correction compounds. Like for example, there's a brand that I love to use, 3D. They make great products, and what I like about their products is they have correction polish, and they have a compound that cuts, at 1,000 and finer. So what happens is it leaves a really nice finish. And there's polish and compounds where people get that mixed up all the time. And what I mean by mixed up is they'll think that they could polish something that is not abrasive enough. A polish leaves that nice glossy finish.
Right.
And what we do is a correction. So a correction is when you're getting into more in depth of holograms and imperfections. And whenever you put a light on the surface, it brings out all of the imperfections. So on acrylic panel, especially if it's black, when the sun hits it, you just see everything as an eyesore. So
yeah,
that's the best way to take care of that.
right. Yeah, because you got like a compound. It's got all the like. It's got a grit to it. What grit would you say a compound or a cutting compound is?
Well, cutting compound, they vary in grit. So they have the heavier, they have the medium, and they have the light. Right. For an acrylic panel, you do not need to use an abrasive compound because it's going to create haze and holograms. You want a very fine cutting compound, something that will cut, at 1,000 and finer and leave a really nice finish. But what it's doing is removing imperfections. So you're doing more of a correction on the acrylic panel because it's already shiny, but what you're doing is removing, any impurity, any imperfections that may be left behind from whenever it was wiped with a rag. Because when you initially get acrylic panel and it's installed, they have a clear plastic over it to protect it. So once it's installed, the boat owner, will wash the boat, and sometimes they'll use that brush, the soft brush, and they'll wash everything and not realizing that will scratch.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes the scratch is a little deeper, and it will require more correction.
Right.
And that's where that comes into play.
So, and you want to use a foam pad, not a wool pad?
You can use a wool pad. It's preference. So a wool pad versus a foam pad, for me personally, I could use both. My preference on an acrylic is a wool pad because the type of finish that it has, and it leaves a minimal holograms or imperfections behind when using your tool correctly, for a professional. Right. If you're in professional industry of doing this, it's all about preference. But me personally, I would recommend using a foam pad.
Okay, because is it more forgiving?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
And if you're using a foam pad, wool pad will have to be a brand new pad, or one that does not have any type of contaminants. Because mind you, you're working with acrylic, so whatever you do, and that rotary buffer is spinning, is going to create.
It's going to be scratching it.
Correct.
All right. So then he's wanting to know about stainless trim and aluminum trim. So probably like, the small things like probably cleats, clamshells, door magnets, latches, all that kind of metal stuff.
So same thing, polishing. You could use honestly with stainless, you can use a compound. They do have products out there that's designed for metal, and what it does is a compound and has wax, so you can pretty much do it in one step. So you're polishing your metal, but then leaving a nice protection on it. So Colonite is a commonly known product that's a metal wax, and if you have like a little rust or water spots, use your Terry rag and you polish it, and then you can remove whatever contaminants or dirt or rust that's on the cleat or your stainless, and it's going to leave a nice finish. Sometimes it does require a little bit more of that elbow grease to get some of those stains out. Like there's been times where I've seen etching in stainless, like if the acid has touched it, and you can polish it out. They do have a polishing wheel, but what's worked great for me, honestly, is I'll grab one of my old buffing pads, and I'll put a little bit of product on there, and I'll just use that and buff that stainless. Obviously you want to use protection, and face mask to protect yourself. But
right,
the results are beyond expectation.
So you really got to kind of polish it up. If it, like, let's say you take an on-off or an acid or something like that, and you wipe all the metal down with that.
Which you should not.
which you should not.
Yes.
But when it gets all rusty, that's kind of like what you got to do. Like, say you've got a piece of metal, it's just all rusty or whatnot. Right. You can just hit that with the on-off to get all that off. But then you got to come back and you got to polish it like with a buffing pad or something, right?
Yeah, so when you're dealing with stainless, most of the time, stainless in the environment we're in, the big factor we deal with is it will start to get buildup of salt, and then you'll get rust.
Okay.
Sometimes in order to remove the salt, you have to do like a light acid wash, to remove salt off the surface. You can dilute it, but what people fail is they will spray rust remover on the stainless, and what'll happen is it will actually etch the finish of the metal. So that's where you'll get your lines from the chemical. Might remove the rust, but then you're going to be faced with now that metal has hazing. So in order to remove that, you can do it by hand with a rag, but the best result obviously is going to be, your next option is using a machine. They have different methods and processes. I mean, I'll share mine with you. What I do is if I run across that situation is I'll use an old buffing pad. I'll apply my product on there and I'll buff out that area, and it will remove the haze because it's more aggressive and you're applying force and it's friction. So, there you go. It'll remove it and it'll look as good as new.
Whereas if you're doing it by hand, you're really
yes.
You got to do it. You got to really work.
You're gonna be working. You're gonna be working.
Awesome. Mark Webb wants to know easy way to remove yellowish tint from white gel coat hull.
Yeah, so they have. So that you're going to go back into acid. So acid is pretty much most of the bottom cleaners. That's what they have, or you can do a calcium remover. Anything having to do with below the waterline is usually you could do a hull cleaner. Western Marine is known. They do have a product that says hull cleaner, and it will remove the yellowing on the bottom of the hull. But any acid, even as far as think about it. We get yellowing in our toilet bowl, from the water. So even if you were to use toilet bowl cleaner, you can remove the yellowing, rinse it off. On the bottom of the hull, obviously, it is gel coat. So once you do it over and over and over again and you don't put protection on there, it will get chalky. So the main thing is if you can wax the bottom of the hull or apply a coat of protection, that's going to be the best result to protect the boat, for the years to come.
Right. So anything you put acid on, you need to put something, wax, ceramic, whatever. You got to put something on there.
It needs to be protected.
It's gonna get worse.
Correct. Because now the gel coat is exposed. And when the gel coat doesn't have any form of protection, it will start to get oxidized, and then the oxidation is going to deteriorate the boat in time.
Yeah. Now, Trippy Wheels, he's got the best question.
Okay.
Can you cut a brother a discount?
We always get that question, and my response is, if someone's calling and they want your service, they're going to pay, but sometimes they don't know what they're getting. So we work with our clients, we build, packages to meet their needs, and we understand that, when it comes to detailing, it can be costly. So we're understanding. Well, yeah, absolutely. We'll give you 10% off your first service.
That's too funny. I didn't even, that's a really good way to answer that, because that's probably is a big problem. It's a big problem. Any service really, if you're doing, getting service work done on your boat, if you're getting detail work done, if you're getting something done, knowing what you're getting, I think there's probably a big disconnect between a lot of people that they think care and maintenance detailing, they think, okay, I'm going to just get a detailer. They're just washing the boat, which it's not, they're not just washing the boat. You're getting a detail. They're going through and cleaning the boat. That's the first step. And then you're protecting the boat with all the compounds, polishes, and all that stuff. So I like the way you answered that, to kind of let them know, this is what we're doing. If you want this in your budget, then we can do this, and this.
Absolutely. Give them the option. Because at the end of the day, the industry is changing by the day. And, what I'm faced with all the time is I have to be understanding of the economy, and a boat is a toy, and there's some people that are fortunate enough to be able to spend the money to maintain, and there's people that work hard in order to have that toy to be able to enjoy. So the maintenance can be costly between repairs and upkeep, and when you're talking about detailing a boat, it can easily end up in the thousands. Just a basic wash, you're talking about just washing the boat alone could be as minimum as $150, and then you can work your way up to about $500 to $700, depending on how in depth the cleaning.
How dirty is your boat?
How dirty the boat is. You talk about
you show blood all over the place. Oh, bro,
fishing all day, you're fighting with fish scale, guts, you name it. And then this is the best part. I love this part. Sometimes I'll have clients or customers that they come, we get the boat detailed. The boat sits for an entire year. And they'll call, hey, I'm coming to use my boat. I need a boat wash. I said, no, you need more than a boat wash. I'll take out my pressure washer, my cleaning products, and I'll go over there. And I was like, here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours later, here I am on a boat wash. And you're talking about time, money, and
product.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Nautic Man says, when to wash versus light polish versus heavy cut compound. Like, how would you know, do I just need to wash it? Do I just need to do a light polish? Like,
well, a wash, if you're the boat owner, a wash is something that you should do at least at minimum once a week. If you're a professional detailer, a wash is something you should do before every detail. Regardless, you can't just go out there and start polishing a boat that has dirt and contaminants. So a wash is going to always be the first thing that you do before anything. And then getting into your polishing, how do you know when to polish? So you're gonna want to polish before you wax.
Right.
Usually, most cases of a boat is maintained on a regular basis and it's in pristine condition. And I mean, you have that nice glossy finish. Where there's no haze or any form of oxidation on the surface, you're safe to do your wash, and then make sure that the surface doesn't have any contaminants, and do a recoat of a wax or sealant.
Right.
Getting into your polish, if you have any type of oxidation, when you touch the boat or vessel and you're getting haze on your hand, you're beyond light oxidation. You're probably medium. I mean, very light oxidation. For the most of the case, I've heard of clients will call me, say, I've used a cleaner wax on it and it took care of it. But personally, just go through the boat and do a really good polish, because what's going to happen is you're going to remove that gel coat that is pretty much no longer it's like that surface that's getting hazy, and you need to bring that luster of a shine back and seal it.
Yeah, it's the gel coat's basically like dying almost. You're kind of like washing
correct.
off,
Yeah. So if you're in a salt environment, the gel coat is going to be exposed to element salt. You're dealing with, if the boat's sitting on a lift, exposed to the salt air, then you have the UV. So between the combination of just those two, then you start to get dirt and, you get birds and, all this contaminant on the surface. So most people think that if they wax your boat, one time for the year is sufficient. That is not the case. You need to wax your boat. Right now it's usually between 90 and 100 degrees. The wax just melts off the surface.
Oh,
so
yeah.
When you wax a boat, usually if it was in the 70s, you could probably go, maybe 4 months, depending on if the boat's covered. If the boat's covered, you can go longer. If the boat's indoor, you can go longer. But if it's outside, you'll be lucky to get 3 months, maybe 4 months, because the surface is baking hot all day. Imagine 95 degrees every single day, 365 days of the year. Yep. That thing is cooking. You can scramble eggs on it, brother. So I tell owners, listen, wax your boat in 4 to 6 months. If it looks good, let's go ahead and plan on waxing it, because you're going to add more protection. Now, once the wax breaks down, right, this is crucial right now. When the wax breaks down, the boat will still have a shine. The wax is a protection. So what it does is it protects the gel coat from deteriorating. Now, when the deterioration takes place is when there's no longer any form of protection. That's when you start to get oxidation. Oxidation is first very light to where you don't notice it. And when you wash the boat, you can almost just wash that really light oxidation off to when you touch the surface. It doesn't appear to be chalky or oxidized. Now, you do a surface test, you can touch the surface and you can feel that there's no protection on there, and a boat will still have a shine. Months goes by, the oxidation goes from light to medium. Right. Now we have a problem, because the problem is you're going to require a form of compounding. You've passed polishing stage. Now you're into cutting. You have to cut to remove the oxidation. Then you have to follow it up with a polish, because unless you're doing a polish that doesn't leave swirl marks or holograms, which is a one step, which they have that. There's different types of there's different processes and steps to doing a detail. I'm just going to cover very simple bases. You're going to get into your compounding. Now, when you get into your compounding, if you're a professional, you'll know what steps to take to make your job easier but provide the best result for the customer. Right. And you'll have to just assess the boat based on the condition it's in and go from there.
Gotcha. I didn't I didn't think about the wax like melting, because that's probably why there's so many people. Like, let's say you live up north, anywhere above Florida, your boating season is a lot smaller, and your days on the water you got mainly 70, 80 degrees, and then you got maybe through September, you got 90s. So, like, you wax your boat in May, it's good for the rest of the year, because in October, you put the boat away. You cover it, you put it away, and now there's no sun. The temperature's 40 degrees or below, and there's nothing tearing the wax down. Whereas you get to South Florida, boom, now you're sitting in the sun, 90 degrees, 365 days out of the year, and it's melting the wax basically off the boat. That's a really good way to put that. I like that.
Thank you.
Didn't even think about that, and that's something that a lot of people don't think about either.
They wouldn't know. I mean, I've been in the industry going on about 16 years. I've been in business going on 8 years, and I've learned a lot over the years. And what I've learned is there's detailing companies out there that just start out and they don't educate the customers. We're here to provide a service, and the more the client knows, they're going to value our service. The industry is changing by the day, and what's happening is everyone wants the cheapest job instead of the best job. So the issue I'm faced with is we'll have clients that call and they've had the boat detail, and what happens, the boat had oxidation, and instead of them doing a compound and a polish and then a wax, they'll wax right over all that oxidation. And the wax breaks down and the boat's completely chalked out because they didn't deal with the problem, they just covered it up.
Right. That's too funny. Oh yeah, I'd come out there and wipe wax all over your boat.
I'll wax it for you.
Charge you a couple grand, and then they roll out, and they're out of business.
And the craziest thing about it is when they wax the boat, they'll put so many layers of wax on it to cover the oxidation that as the boat owner, you would never know. You'll say, oh, my boat looks beautiful. But 3-4 months goes by, and then that sun just bakes that wax off, and you don't wax the boat for a year. You're now chalked out to the point you're getting
twice as bad.
You're getting into wet sanding. Wet sanding is we don't want to talk about that right now.
That's too funny. So, all right, that was Nautic Man. So, TZW says, what's the safest and most effective way to remove stains from vinyl cushions?
Stains from vinyl cushion. Well, they have upholstery cleaner, and the first thing you want to do is obviously try the upholstery cleaner. Right. And use soap and water. Magic eraser. Do not be aggressive with it. Depending on the type of stain, most of the stains are, if you're talking about tanning oil and stuff like, and sunblock, most of the time, if you keep your upholstery conditioned on your boat and vessel, whatever contaminants get on your upholstery, it's easier to clean it. The problem is once you have no protection on there, everything that gets on there will seep into the vinyl, and it will make it almost impossible to make it like new. So the biggest form of cleaning is going to be preventive maintenance. So stay on top of it, so when you have an issue, that it's easier to clean it. And if you run across the situation, depending on what you're dealing with, if you're dealing with mold, we'll do a mold and mildew. Mold and mildew is a common thing because of the humidity. We have boats down here in the Florida Keys that are covered, or they may be stored indoors. And even though the boat may be clean, there's still times where the cushion will get mold and mildew, and we'll do a mold and mildew treatment. Then we'll clean it really well, and then do a protectant, 303 protectant. That way, condition the cushion very well that way. If is faced with any challenges in the future, you get blood or you get any sunblock on it, it's easier to clean. Yeah, because once the stains, if you don't have any protection at all, once that stain gets in the upholstery, it's almost like there's no. Yeah. So if you're talking about vinyl is easier to work with. If you're talking, depending on the type of material you're working with, most of the boats and vessels we deal with, always have vinyl. Every boat has vinyl. It's just depending on. At what point does it need to be changed or replaced? Because sometimes there's situations where you're trying to clean something that you can't clean. Like if the dye's gone, the vinyl. If you start to see little specks, you start to see areas where it's discoloration, because what happens is you scrubbed it. The worst thing you can do on a cushion is start to scrub it with a brush or scrub it with something abrasive to remove the stain. Do not do that, because you're going to damage it and going to have to replace it. Because you're basically scrubbing
the dye out of the vinyl.
Yes.
So the color of the cushion, like it's white. Let's go with white because
Correct.
that's what everybody's got
Yes.
white cushions. And like you said, with the full covers, if that full cover ain't vented, then all the moisture is coming up in there in the boat. And now all of a sudden
humidity.
you've created a greenhouse basically.
Yes.
So yeah, you're going to get the mold on the cushions, and you're scrubbing the color out of the cushion,
Yes.
out of the white. And there's no way to get it back unless
There's no way to get back unless you replace it.
Unless you replace it, or I've seen. I haven't tried it yet.
You can respray it, or they have that. I personally, I mean, you can do it if you're professional. I mean, that's not something I would sample because if you might spray that cushion, but it's not going to match the rest of the boat.
Yeah.
So,
You might as well do all your cushions.
You might as well do all the cushions because that one is going to stand out. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't even think. I've never tried that stuff. I've seen people talking about like the SEM or SEM upholstery paint or whatever it is, and I've never tried. Have you ever done that?
I've never done it. There's been someone I've met, I've seen a work personally is preparation. You have to tape everything off. You have to take it off. I mean, honestly, the best thing you could do is just do the preventive maintenance. Yeah. Because if you do the preventive maintenance, you won't have to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, but no one does that.
So hire,
that's why we're talking here.
hire a detailing company.
Yeah.
Call. So so you do run across that, and and you feel that you want to try that method if you have an area on the cushion that the dye might have, you
scrubbed it out.
Scrubbed it out, and you want to try that as an option, you can. But you might have to do all the upholstery on the boat.
That's why everybody says not to use the bleach, because the bleach will
it
takes it
not good.
It takes the color out. See, I never thought about that. The vinyl has a dye in it that gives you your color, and that color is white, or whatever color.
Whatever the case may be, yes.
Yeah, that's funny. Awesome. Lockhart Matthew says the best way to get stains out of the deck.
Okay, C deck. So C deck.
No, I don't think this is C deck. This is just straight up like the deck.
Oh, the deck on the boat.
Yeah.
All right. So so if you have a boat and you have you say your dime pattern, gel coat on the floor or non-skid, whatever the case may be, you first have to identify what type of contaminant or dirt you're dealing with. Grease. You're obviously going to be a degreaser. You're dealing with dirt. You're going to get your cleaners. Depending on what you're using, they have various. I mean, you just think about it. Anything from simple green to your boat soaps to your decontamination soap. So cleaning, you have to find out what
you're trying to clean.
What you're trying to clean first, and then you have to pick the chemical that's going to work best. Not just anything. The last thing you want to do is start spraying rust remover and acid.
Yeah.
Yes, let's not do that. Identify what it is you need to clean, and then you'll pick a chemical that's going to work best for your job.
Right.
And what I found out, that works best is, especially on the floor, it's a high traffic area, and that dirt will get embedded. And sometimes what happens is, even if you use a hard brush, a deck brush, it's not going to be aggressive enough to remove the dirt. So you might have to take a pressure washer to it, and it's going to make your life easier to get that dirt and grime that may be built up layered upon layered. And even though you might clean it, just from time in the sun really baking it in, it makes it really hard to remove everything. You're gonna have to use that elbow grease, but a pressure washer is gonna be sometimes your best option to help you out there.
What pressure do you like on a pressure washer?
Honestly, I use a 1900 psi. And you're in a safe zone on that. The reason why I say that, if you get into the more, 3,000, 3,500, 4,000, sometimes you do more damage than good. On gel coat, it's forgiving. You're not going to harm anything, but you just don't need that much power.
Right.
2,000 psi, is more than sufficient. You can go a little bit higher, 3,000, depending on what you're doing. But you get to stay away from anything you could, damage. But on a boat, say if you say 2,000 psi, should be able to give you enough power to get the boat clean.
Yeah, because you see it on older boats. People will get up on there with a pressure washer and say,
depends on what you're doing. Yes,
you got like an older one that's good, where the gel coat's already breaking down, and they start blasting the gel coat off. You start any void in the gel coat, you can expose those.
Yeah, so on the exterior, on a gel coat surface, the pressure washer will not harm the boat. But if you're doing just general cleaning, to remove dirt, grime, dust, whatever the case may be, sometimes fish guts.
Yep.
Instead of the chum bag hanging on the side of the boat, instead of getting there and start scrubbing with a rag, pressure wash it. You know, it'll take it right off, and you won't have to sit there. I mean, if you're using a magic eraser is abrasive, and you might think that you're cleaning off the surface with that magic eraser, but you're actually creating scratches because a magic eraser is very fine sandpaper. So what you're doing when you're scratching the surface of your boat, you know, you're sanding. You rub that area to remove the stain, and then it's gonna be scratched up. So pressure washer might be the best option for the deck. And then if you have any other challenges on the boat, that might help you out.
So Splitting Fishing says, what is the best and easiest way to clean and condition aluminum Ttops?
Aluminum Ttops, if to clean and condition, Woody Wax makes a great product. I've been in the industry for many years, and I've tried many products. I mean, I've tried lots of products, but this one in particular that really stood out is the Woody Wax. It's in a blue can, and then it comes with a steel wool fine, and the aluminum. Okay, so down in the Florida Keys, we're in a salt environment. We're constantly fighting with the elements. So salt will actually cause the T-top to oxidize. It gets that white haze, and then it'll start to get pitting. So sometimes there's cases where we do condition the T-top with a metal protection of your choice. So I'll use like Colonite. They have the insulator wax that works really great on the metal. But if you come across a situation where you need to do a cleaning because there's a haze on your aluminum, Woody Wax, and then they have the steel wool, and then they have a special product you can use with it, or you can use the Woody Wax and steel wool, and you can clean the oxidation. With that white haze off the aluminum, and it's going to also leave a nice protection. So that white haze and the oxidation buildup is just from the aluminum starting to oxidize.
Right.
So it starts getting oxidized and it starts getting pitted. So you can for most cases clean it and protect it, and that's been the best way I've learned how to do that.
Yeah, I use not really the steel wool because one time I had a long time ago, I had this Mako, same thing, the T-top. I was like, I'm going to clean this T-top. I got up there, I did a whole thing of steel wool, and then it like rained right after I did it. All them little things, all the steel wool all over the boat, little rust spots all over the boat. And I was like...
the trick with that is, I'm going to tell you what the trick. You have to get a rag. You put the steel wool inside the rag.
Oh.
And then what you do is you put it in the palm of your hand, and then the area that you're working, you only want the steel wool to make contact with that area, and you have an overlap with a rag as a barrier, so whenever you're working, that area doesn't dry. So you can always do other methods too if you don't feel comfortable. You can always put some plastic down. I mean, if you get to the point where you're doing a restoration on the aluminum, it's going to be messy. It's just a matter of how you're going to be efficient with your tools and the environment that you're in to just try to find out the best result, and that's what's worked the best for me.
What about doing a what are the other pads that they have? Like there's a like a copper.
Yeah, but they have different types of pads to clean aluminum. But for the most case, if you're doing a protection and you don't require the wool, you can do insulator wax. Works great. By Colonite, you put it on, let it haze over, and you take it off, and it leaves a really good protection on there to where it will repel. It will cause the salt and the contaminants not to be able to do harm and damage.
Yeah, I like Colonite. Colonite's they got really good stuff. OD says, any tips for color matching when doing gel coat repairs and fixing some mismatched gel coat repairs done by previous owner? That's not really maintenance, but yeah.
So as far as gel coat repair, anytime a boat or vessel is damaged and you have to do gel coat repair, you can match it, but in time it's always going to stand out. It will stand out because even if you match it up, you have fresh gel coat versus old gel coat. And then most cases, the best way to match it, you have to make sure that you buff out the area. If it's an older boat that's not, not shiny, you have to get the best clarity and shine. So that way you can, obviously when you're doing your color matching, it's not my specialty, but I have done it. And a friend of mine's been in the business for about 30 years. I've watched him do it. So I know that what goes behind it. It's not something that you can do it yourself. You have to play with colors and get it to a certain point. And then once you get it matched up close enough, you obviously you do your repair. But keep in mind, anytime a white boat, yes, you can probably get away to where you won't even see it. But when you get into your blues, your blacks, your reds,
any color,
it'll probably look good initially, but in time, if the boat fades or anything happens with the gel coat, the repairs will show up.
Yeah, that's getting into a whole nother you're talking about fiberglass.
Yes, that's like a whole different beast.
Yeah. Junior West says, "What's the recommended wax to protect my gel coat from sun damage?"
So as far as recommended wax, they have the traditional wax. Right now, I'm more geared towards polymer sealants. They're more durable. They hold up a lot better than our traditional wax. And as far as brand is all about preference. I mean, you'll have people that say, I like 3M, and I like McGuire, I like this company. But really, ultimately, it just all depends on what you feel comfortable. You could do your research and find out what will work best. And then we talk about ceramic coating as well. So as far as preference-wise, if you're doing it for the first time and you haven't waxed before, I mean, Colonite, personally, I love their product. Fleet wax works great. It just all depends. It just depends. If you're do-it-yourselfer versus a professional, that's going to obviously play a big factor in what you do, because you're not going to know, and you're going to look for some guidance on that. So
also budget.
Yeah, budget. Budget is going to play a big factor too. So obviously, the better the product, you're going to pay a little bit more for quality.
Yeah, I like Colonite too. That fleet wax is that, what do they call it? The Aero something or other? It's like airplane wax or something. The fleet.
It's it's a really, really good brand. I used to use it all the time. Now, I use other products because here's the thing: I'm in the industry, so I'm going to use what the best product is, even if it costs more, to provide the ultimate protection. Fleet wax is a good go-to, absolutely by far. And then when you get into your protections, there's different types of protection. So you could do your wax and then also your ceramic. If you're do-it-yourselfer and you want to know more about the ceramic coating will actually be the best option for a newer vessel. You can do it on an older vessel, but newer vessel, if it's a brand new boat, you prep and you can do the install, and it's going to hold up better against the element than wax will, and give you a more extended life of protection.
But it's the same thing. Ceramic is just the same thing as wax. You have to keep reapplying, like everything.
It's a ceramic and wax. They're in two separate categories. So wax has a shorter life expectancy. So if you wax a boat, you'll obviously you can do multiple layers. Whatever the case may be, you could do 2 coats of wax. That's whatever the case may be. But you will not get the same life as doing a ceramic install. They're just two different. And you're talking about nano coating versus traditional wax or polymer sealant. Polymer sealant, the way it's formulated, and obviously the protection that it gives, the hydrophobic properties, and the way that it works, has been a more of a I would say preference these days versus the traditional wax. But when you're talking about using a wax for your personal boat or vessel, that just ultimately comes down to price, budget, and comfortability on what you can do for yourself.
What is the difference between polymer and wax and ceramic?
Okay, so all right, so just picture this. The way that the wax works, I can't tell you exact in depth, the formulation.
The chemical makeup.
Yeah, I can't tell you the chemical makeup. I'm not the scientist here, but I'll tell you that there is a difference between. So let's say you go in West Marine and you pick up your McGuire's, McGuire's wax.
Yep.
You read the bottle. You said, okay, everlasting protection. You put it on the boat. You wait a couple months and come back. Take a look at it. You do an assessment, and you realize, okay, held up good for the first month, second month, third month. Maybe the fourth month is starting to break down.
Right.
Obviously, it's the formulation of how they designed it, what's actually in the wax, to keep it active and protected against the elements. The polymer, however, I'm still up trying to figure out. Maybe I need to do more research. But this stuff, man, is scary.
Really?
I mean, just the hydrophobic properties that it gives off, that shine and the depth, like just it's definitely more durable. And actually, for polymer wax, it's not even supposed to get wet for 24 hours.
Really?
Yeah, during the curing. Most detailers, they don't tell the clients that, but honestly, the way that is designed, it says, you're supposed to, there's a window where it's not supposed to get wet. So you'd almost think it's like a ceramic, but it's not.
Yeah. That's like a pretty big piece of information. It's like,
yes.
It's a boat. Like it's going into the water. Like, what do you mean it can't get wet?
Yeah. So, and then when you get into your ceramic coating now, there's been a big misconception on that. It's been frustrating for me as someone in the industry trying to explain what ceramic is, because you're talking about, oh yeah, I went down to AutoZone and I picked up a bottle of ceramic and I sprayed my boat. I said, no, that's not ceramic coating. I mean, you're providing hydrophobic properties and protection, but it's not going to be durable, especially for a boat. If you do like a spray ceramic on your boat, it's going to probably bead up really nice and it's going to probably give it a little bit of protection, but you need to do the actual coating itself. It's in liquid form, and it's a process to apply it. That's going to give you the best protection. They have, marine coating that's designed for boats, and what it does is it bonds with the gel coat. So the idea of the coating is the boat needs to look clean and pristine, and look immaculate. And this is the last step, just like wax. You're not supposed to wax over something that requires work.
Right.
So ceramic is the very last step. And one thing with ceramic is ceramic will separate the people that are not professionals in the industry, because what happens is it requires so much work before you do the install. So you have to sometimes compound polish, do correction. You have to tape off the surface when you do everything. Make sure everything is clean, no contaminants, wash the boat. And then you do your application. Once you apply the ceramic coating, you're on your boat. The nice thing about it is now your boat is protected from the elements. It seals the gel coat. It bonds with the gel coat, where wax actually sits on top. When you put a coat of wax on, it's on top. It's like makeup. Women love their makeup. They put it on their face. They look pretty already, but they put it on their face because they want to. They want to bring out their looking appearance.
Well, they want to attract somebody.
Exactly. So you think about the ceramic, you put the ceramic on, and you're going to always have people, their head's going to turn because you're going to see that gleam and shine.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, you're driving a boat, and the water is just beating off, shearing off the surface, just looking immaculate as it's gliding through the water. So ceramic coating was formulated, the way that it was formulated was to obviously provide elements against, salt, whatever contaminants there may be in the environment. And it actually bonds with the gel coat. So when you put the coating on, it actually absorbs into the gel coat. So sometimes on boats, you have to do more than one coat. And over the period of time, right, when you're using it, like over a period of time, the ceramic will break down, but it takes a long time. Right. Because it actually turns into glass. Once you apply it, it's a very thin layer of glass over the gel coat that provides a barrier between the elements. So if you're a boat owner and your boat's ceramic coated, you come back from a day out, you take the water hose out, your soap, and you're able to wash off the dirt and grime off the boat without fighting with it. Right. Wax should do the same thing, can do the same thing, but obviously it's not as durable as ceramic.
Wax, you could almost wash it off.
Correct. You can strip it.
A brush with an abrasive.
You can, So wax, you can strip wax with an aggressive cleaner. Ceramic, you have to sand it off.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So there's a big difference. Ceramic coating, it's not as easy as just taking it off with soap and water, or degreaser. I mean, it's even acid resistant. So come on, you think about it. Something that powerful on your vessel protecting it, man. You're talking about, you have a shield on your boat. Right. So that's so ceramic is taking over now. That's, obviously the new in the world. I mean, any industry that we're in right now, ceramic is the big talk.
For those, before we get more into the ceramic, for those talking about like the polymers and the wax, you call it hydrophobic. So what does that mean for
So hydrophobic is the beading effect that it gives off. So whenever whenever a surface is not waxed and you spray water, the water tends to just stick. It just sits on there.
Right.
When it's hydrophobic, when you spray the water, it repels the water and the water just beads right off.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what gives it. That's what gives it the like
the hydrophobic.
That look, like you're saying, where it beads off. Now, ceramic being so hard, if you don't put it on right, can it crack?
Ceramic will not crack, but what it will do is you'll be able to see all the imperfections. So if you have a boat or vessel that wasn't detailed properly or correct, or even say corrected, and there's holograms and swirl marks, and you ceramic coat it, then the ceramic coating obviously will still be on the boat or vessel protecting it. But however, on the appearance side, it's going to be an eyesore.
Yeah, you can make it like hazy. You can
correct.
Make it
so
whatever.
So what'll happen? Like if, for example, you should not ceramic coat a boat that's chalky. The boat needs to be detailed and corrected and polished and inspected, and then that's the very last step.
Yeah, because if you just take an oxidized boat and put that over, it's gonna look it's gonna look white and cloudy and just look terrible.
That is it. Just a picture getting a brand new phone and putting a screen protector over. That's what you're doing. You're protecting. You're protecting the surface from damage.
Awesome. Now, Preben Berkland says how to raise water lines slightly, how to do small gel coat, scratch repairs, and color match. That's pretty much all fiberglass.
Yeah.
And the water lines, on a boat, that's probably talking about bottom paint, and you just raise it up.
As far as questions like that, again, it's not something that I do. I've been around the industry. I've been around in the industry for a long time, so I've seen it happen, or I've at some point have done it.
Yeah.
Anything having to do with gel coat or fiberglass work, obviously, you're getting into a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's not care and maintenance. That's repair.
That's not care and maintenance. But yeah, fiberglass or gel coat work. If you have any exposing gel coat, you can do the repair, sand it, and buff it out. Apply your wax. If fiberglass work, you're getting into grinding, and then you're getting into mixing gel coat, laying it, grinding it down, building it up, and it's messy and costly.
Yep. Now, Pimp wants to know which tools is important to buy first. I'm starting to do my own detailing. I've gotten product now is pads and buffer or orbital. Not sure what will be the best. So he's looking, what tools would he buy to get into detailing, and then like what kind of pads, what kind of orbital, like brand.
So, all right. So to be 100% honest with you on that question, it's going to be the type of detailing. If you're going to be geared towards maintenance, which is like a wash and maybe a light polish on a wax, or you're going to be doing restoration. If you're going to be always doing like maintenance, you can get by with doing an orbital. Obviously, an orbital is going to be orbital is a very slow process.
Because you got a 5-inch pad.
Well, slow process is as in like the speed that you have to work with. Or a rotary buffer, if you're doing a polishing, you can pick up the speed, and if you know how to use the buffer and how to, just work with the tool, then it'll make your job easier. But I started out with a rotary. I mean, again, I've been around the industry for a long time, and that's how I learned. But it's for someone starting out, a rotary can work for you just fine, but you have to feel comfortable with the tool that you're using. So if you're not as comfortable, maybe an orbital might be an option that might work better for you. And if it's a newer boat, it should not require heavy cutting or compounding. So orbital, with the right pad, should be more than sufficient to do the job that you need.
So when you say orbital, you're talking about like a DeWalt or a Makita or a Milwaukee.
A brand, so
like a 5
so
inch.
A DeWalt, so a orbital of your choice. So as far as a brand is up to you and your budget. I've even gotten tools from Harbor Freight at some point in my career because
or Bauer, whatever brand.
So the brand, obviously, the brand is the brand, but the tool itself is going to be what you need to get in order to make sure you have a sufficient tool for the job you need.
What speeds are orbitals normally?
Orbital is, it vibrates and spins.
Yep.
As far as speed is going to be determined based on what you're doing. I mean, obviously, if you're waxing or if you're doing correction, and then most of the products that you use, believe it or not, on the back of the bottle will tell you what speed to run it at for the best result.
Okay, yep. So anything that you get, whether it be a rotary, an orbital,
yes,
or a polishing or a buffer, you want to get something that's a variable speed.
Yeah, variable speed, yes, because everything you do is going to require different speed. I mean, if you're doing compounding, you're not going to be running at full throttle. Compounding, you're running slower. Polishing, you're going to be running faster. Anytime you're cutting, you're not running the buffer at a very high speed. You're running it to the point where you let the material break down and do the work, and the machine is making your job easier versus doing it by hand.
Right. So now, when you say rotary,
yes, rotary spins, orbital. Saying it vibrates.
It vibrates and spins.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what size pads do you normally would you get?
I mean, you can do pad size can vary. Again, it just all depends on what you feel comfortable with, the surface area you're working with. Obviously, if you're working with a smaller surface area, and you need to be working, usually shoulder width apart. I mean, so you're only working probably a 1 to 2 foot area at a time anyways. So you don't need a massive pad. On the rotary, I'll run a 7-inch pad because obviously I'm covering massive area of a boat. I mean, usually that's my go-to because at the end of the day, I'm comfortable working with that size pad. But there are times where I will use, my smaller pads, depending on what I'm doing. I'm getting into my correction and fine tuning and stuff like that. Depends on what I'm doing. I have different pads.
Right. Now, do you need adapters or anything to adapt?
Yes. You'll if you're running double-sided buffing pads, you will need an adapter. And the adapter is a little spacer that will go on the actual buffer, and then you'll need that to attach your pad to. And then they have extensions that you could also buy, depending on what part of the boat you're going to be buffing. Sometimes the buffer is not able to get into that area, so you'll need to buy extensions for the backing plate. That way, it can give you a little bit of a distance. That way, you can work with that tool efficiently.
Right. So you like the double-sided pads?
I honestly, I don't have a preference. It just depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing buffing in the inside of the boat, the double-sided pad is nice because you can get between the handrails really good without that backing plate scratching or damaging anything.
Yep.
So double-sided pads are really good. If I'm doing a haul, the single-sided pads are fine, and it's easy to work with. Once it's dirty, rip it off and just throw it aside unless you get the quick disconnect, and it gets fancy when it gets into the detail. Well, you'll see that.
So rotaries are basically just a polisher.
Yeah, rotary will be your better option if you're going to be doing more heavy duty compounding and polishing.
Right.
Because if you do that with the orbital, man, you're going to be there for days.
Yeah. So he might as well just go ahead and get a rotary polisher, whatever brand you want, with an adapter to do a 7-inch pad, double-sided.
Yeah,
pad.
so he won't need an adapter unless he's running a double-sided pad.
Which he's going to want to do that.
Yeah, so he's going to need a double-sided. Yeah, so he will need a double-sided pad for sure. I mean, need to get the double-sided pad as well. And as far as pads, he'll definitely want to get foam pads. So if he does wool pads, you can do the cutting, and then you can do the polishing wool pads.
So it's two different kinds, one for cutting, one for polishing.
Yeah, so I mean, do people use the same pad, the cutting for polishing? Yeah, but should you know? I mean, obviously, there's two different types of material, the more aggressive wool, and then you have the yellow pad that's more for like polishing and perfecting.
Okay, so the white one is for cutting, and the yellows for polishing.
Polishing, yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So then you get into your foam pad. So can you use the foam pad with the rotary? Absolutely, you can. But starting out, you'll learn a little bit more as you go. But just basically think about it like this. If you get a call and you need to do a polish on a wax, you can do a polish on a wax with the rotary buffer. You can do everything with a rotary buffer. And then if you get to the point where you do want to add rotary buffer a orbital buffer to your artillery. You get into more like, doing corrections and stuff like that. It's always good to have orbital.
Yeah, and they're like $80-$100 depending.
Yeah, if you can get both because you will use it if you're a detailer.
Yeah, perfect. Then Grumpy Vet says, "What's the best cutting compound that you found?" I like that stuff you showed me the other day.
You like it?
Presta or
you like it?
Yeah, that stuff worked great.
Yeah, it's not as messy as that 3M.
Right, the heavy duty, the 3M. No, there's Super Duty. That's
Presta Super Cut, but it's not as messy, and it cuts well. So all right, so when we talk about compounds, what's the best? I don't really like to put a name on what the best is. I like to say what works best for me and what I'm doing. So when I get into my compounds and my restorations, if I'm doing sanding, I've always used 3M products because obviously they're a well-known brand. 3M. I used to use this 3M Super Duty. Anytime I was doing restoration, then I will follow it up with the heavy cut. Then I'll do my medium and polish. But over time, obviously being in this industry going on almost 9 years, I've learned that sometimes you have to work smarter, more efficiently.
Yep.
So I've shared my knowledge with other detailers in the industry. They've talked about so many products, and at the end of the day, it's what works best. But also, you have to understand that not everything requires heavy compound. So you need to assess the boat and understand that if you put heavy compound, you're going to remove layers of gel coat. So before you even consider a heavy compound, think about pretty much how far you want to go with the detailing, because heavy cut means you have to follow it up with another step.
Yep.
A medium cut or a correction compound to remove the hologram. So you can go with a 3M product, you can go with a product of preference, but the main thing is, what does it cut at? What grit? So look at the grit, and the grit will help you to determine how aggressive that product is and how much oxidation it will remove off of the boat.
With gel coat.
Correct. Do not put that on paint because, yes, you will remove the paint. Yeah. So safe to say 3M is a well-known brand. Are they the best? Not to all, but it has worked great for me. There's other companies out there, and you can do some research. Just put in compounds. Your local West Marine, your local boat store, heavy compound, and check to see what grit it cuts at, and that will help you to determine if it's going to be sufficient enough to do the work, and then you will follow it up with a second step. Sometimes if you do a heavy compound, usually you're already at the minimum of 3 steps.
Right, because you're doing compound, correction, polish.
Correct. You can do compound and a correction polish depending on how fine it cuts. So what I do is if I do a compound, I will do a correction polish that cuts at 1,000 and finer to remove holograms and swirl marks. Now, if you're not in the industry, and for example, and you a person that is a do-it-yourselfer and you want to detail something, you can do a one-step. Now, what a one-step is essentially a product that has the ability to cut and it has wax. Now, I don't personally like that as an option because I feel like the wax is fatty and it gums up the pad and it creates more work. And then you have to go over that area so many times to remove oxidation. And then it's like you're not really getting that true,
shine. You're not going to get that true, look on the side and
it'll look nice, but there's a big difference between there's a big difference between when you go through all the steps versus only doing one. It'll look good, but looking great is a whole different story.
So the Presta and the 3M, I like the 3M too. I think
there's other companies out there. There's many product lines out there, but I'm just going to give you the 2 that are pretty well known, that have worked great for me over the years. And are there better products out there? There's always better products out there, but what is ultimately comes down to what is going to work the best for what you need.
I'd also say to make sure that it's like boat marine stuff, because
Yes.
people go to like AutoZone or Advanced
Yes,
Auto and get
make
something
sure-
that's like, that stuff's going on a metal car,
Yes.
not gel coat.
Yeah. So gel coat and paint are two different surface. And yes, are you able to use, for example, a polish or polish on a boat that you can use on a car?
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on the ability for it to cut. Remember, gel coat's more is thicker. You're dealing
porous.
You're dealing with a different type of finish. So there's times where I've heard of detailing companies using car products on boats. Car products are strictly designed
for paint.
For cars, unless that particular product, depending on what it is, if it's a compound, obviously it will still work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a matter of how hard you'll have to work depending on how it's formulated to do the job.
For sure. Captain Jimmers, he wants to know, are the new synthetic waxes better than old industry standard waxes? I don't really know what that means.
As far as new versus old, the time that we're in, with technology taking over, I would say anything that's current, obviously there's been changes and advancement, and the scientists have obviously done a lot of work to make these products available to us to make our life easier. So I would say that's a personal assessment based on experience.
Yep.
Because I can't tell you if something is better and then another person say no, it's not better. So it's going to be based on how it's worked out for you.
Right.
I do really feel that what's come out has changed the industry all the way around and made life a lot easier for us as detailers, having the tools. Waxing is hard work. People think it's easy, but it takes a lot to wax a surface. Like, to give you an idea, even a 24-foot boat, before you can apply a coat of wax on it, you have to go through and tape everything off, do a polish, and you could literally spend 3 days on a boat, 4 days on a boat. You have to apply a wax on every crevice of the boat, then go back behind it with the buffer and polish it off. If you do it by hand, your arms are dead. So
well, then when you're using the polish, that polish just ain't light either. You're trucking that. I mean, that thing's like what, like 15 pounds?
Yeah, it's about 7-8 pounds, but it adds up, man.
Yeah. That's also somebody else was wanting to know. Where's that guy? He wants to know. Chris. He wants to know, how can you work in this heat?
Working in the heat, making sure that you have the proper work gear. So wearing a hat, wearing a buff, wearing SPS 50, wearing dry fit pants, wearing gloves, sunglasses, staying hydrated. But also the most important thing of all, you have to be passionate about it. If you're not passionate, the passion is what drives me every day. Living in the Florida Keys, I was in hospitality for 10 years in the AC, wearing a suit every day. And I can tell you, I wouldn't go back to that, man. I love what I do.
Not a suit and tie kind of. Getting caught up just doing hospitality and I'm with you.
Yeah, is it hot outside? It is, but I'll tell you what, man. When you're focused on what you're doing, you forget it's hot out. Sometimes it's so hot outside, and I'll have people coming up to give me bottled waters, even a beer in the middle of the day. And I'll say, I'll take the water, the beer's for later.
Here it's 105 degrees.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
And I'll tell you, it's tempting. It's tempting, but I'm like, no, I'll take the water.
Yeah. That's too funny. Moody Marina says, do it for free, worth a shot. Honestly, I have been... Like, obviously, that's probably, you better get that all the time. It's, you do it for free? Yeah, right. Honestly, I have been through so many detailers. It's crazy. Where it gets worse is the ceramic coat. Some guys have amazing products but don't own or represent the product, so you're passed down the additional cost. Vessel in question is over 150 feet. That's a big boat. We have seen some amazing things with coatings, just difficult to find the right company. Before we go into this one, because this one... He's got kind of a lot going on there. But back to the different products, it's also, with the way things are today, everybody's trying to make a buck.
Yes.
So you got companies that are trying to like white label products and just pump them out there. They're trying to get on Instagram, TikTok. everything now, short form content is like so crazy because
Absolutely.
you got people that it's a virus. That's why you call it going viral, because it's a virus and it takes over.
Absolutely.
Like here you get 10 million views in like 2 days and then it's dead. That's because it was a virus. But like a 40-second clip, people are they come out with, new ceramic, new wax, new whatever. And it's just a white labeled choppy product that ain't even that good, but yet they put it on Instagram. It goes viral. Everybody knows about it. They sell 10,000 bottles of this stuff. And then you got 5,000 people that don't know how to put it on there, putting it on and charging astronomical numbers. Here's 10 grand to do that. Well, for 150 boat, this guy's probably forking out 30, 40 grand
easily
just to do the detail.
Easily. About $250 a foot.
Yeah. So $250 a foot, he's talking a lot of money there. So, I think that plays a big part. Kind of like why sticking with 3M is good, because it's been around for a long time and it's really well known. Just like same thing for McGuire's or trying to think of other Starbright.
Absolutely. Are they the best product out in the industry? No, but are they well known, and do you know what you're getting when you pay for it? Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? They can stand behind it. Yep. Now, when we get into ceramic coating, that's why I said earlier is the big misconception. There's detailers in the industry that are not educated enough to even do the install. Unfortunately,
they're just getting into it. They don't know. They're just starting a business.
Absolutely. Yeah. To open a detailing business, you don't need any type of schooling or license. You can literally go open an LLC, go get a bucket and a buffer, and you're good to go.
Get somebody to pay you,
and that's it. So as a bow owner, you don't know this. You're gonna do your research, go online, and you're gonna find a company, and this is what you need to look for. First, most important thing you need to look for. Are you licensed and insured? Second thing, right? If they have a Google account, Google reviews, you know what I'm saying? If you need to even go as far as asking for referrals, you know what I'm saying, of a ceramic coating job, not just taking a word for it. Because at the end of the day, you're spending thousands of dollars on your boat.
Oh, yeah, especially you got a 150 footer.
There's people that make fancy videos and do all this extra stuff and promoting their company and their products. But I educate my customers before I even do the install. And sometimes doing a ceramic install is not even in their favor. Right. It's an older boat. It requires restoration, taking layers upon layers of gel coat off. And there's so many imperfections on the boat that by the time we get it ready to be prepped to coat, it's going to require multiple layers. It's going to be porous, and then you're going to be, the last thing you want is the customer to be disappointed. So sometimes I'll either steer them towards doing a wrap on the hull.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother option. That'd be way better.
And even though it looks like I'm losing money, I'm really not. Hey, wrap the boat, and we can still ceramic coat the wrap, protect the wrap. That way, the wrap is protected from the salt and the dirt, and you'll practically have a new boat. So providing an option for the customer, right? You're going to build morale and educating educating people about the difference between ceramic coating and wax, and when they should and when they shouldn't. Not just take their money and tell them, yeah, I can do it, no problem. So yeah, there's a good point there.
And I could imagine having a 150-foot boat, like that's
a big boat, and to have just anyone go out there
and get all over this thing,
that ceramic. Here's the thing with ceramic: it's not forgiving. Once you put it on, it's not something that you can just wipe off.
Right.
So you have the wrong company, you have the wrong product applied on your boat, man. It's just a recipe for disaster, and no one wants that. And at the end of the day, that's where morale comes in. When you trust someone, you're trusting them with your personal asset that costs you millions of dollars. So you want to protect it the best way possible by making sure you make the right conscious decision on who you hire. And that's what comes back down to being educated. And when you're educated is whenever like people like Aaron, provide that information for people to be able to have that as in their artillery to say, I'm going to make a conscious decision on who I'm going to hire based on what I found out today. Yeah. You can do screening. Hey, when was the last time you ceramic coated boat? What type of product are you using? What is the difference between 9H and 14H? During the ceramic product, how long do I have to wait to use my boat? Things like that. What's the care plan? What's the maintenance after I do the coating? Right. Things like that, because coating, as great as it may sound, it requires maintenance. And the maintenance is as simple as doing a good wash as much as possible, and always using, SiO2 soap, designed and formulated for the coating. Now, is it bulletproof? Absolutely not like anything else. But the installers and this time, the people in the industry, like you said, are out to just collect a quick buck. And if they have to lie or they have to deceive people to do what they will.
Yep. Oh yeah, and especially with short form content on Instagram. I mean,
Absolutely.
anybody can, buy followers and pop up just a bunch of pictures, a bunch of reels, take some minutes to make the videos. So it's like you can really make it look like you got this awesome stuff and really not, and really.
And I'm going to add to that. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with the product. I would say a majority of the time is something wrong with the person doing the install.
Yeah.
Anytime there's any oils or any type of wax that is on a surface and ceramic is applied over it, the ceramic will not bond correctly. And that is a big problem. So if someone could say, I had my boat ceramic coated 6 months ago or a year ago and it's not holding up, it could be installer error. The product wasn't applied correctly. The product got wet during, in the short time frame that it shouldn't have got wet. Or, they didn't do another layer. They think one layer was sufficient. The boat was a restoration. They had to sand and buff it. So they put that layer, the gel coat absorbed the product, and they needed to apply another layer of ceramic, and they walked away because they said they did it. So the boat owners obviously, really disappointed, and now they have to do their homework on who to hire next.
What you said, 9H or 14H? What is that? What's
There's
that?
The hardness and durability of the coating itself. So the formulation is you'll see 9H. So the coating, the way that it's formulated in the lab, is the thickness. So the thickness is how durable the actual coating is when applied on the surface. If it's a 9H. You usually, typically on marine, you should have to do 2 layers of this on, depending on what you're working on.
Right.
So 9H will determine how long the actual coating itself will hold up over an extended period of time in the elements. So the sun, plays a factor, the location of where the boat is. So 9H is a very well known. You'll see that on almost every single ceramic coating bottle out there.
Okay.
Now, there's different types of coating. We can all cover that another time. But yeah, just general information.
Yeah. If somebody does have that, let's say did like this guy, it sounds like he's already got a problem. But if you have someone come out and they did put ceramic coating on your boat,
yes, and
it messed it up, what do you got to do to get that off?
Sand it.
You got to sand that off there.
Yes. That's the only way. Once, remember,
1,000 grit, 800 grit, like 1,500 grit.
I'll be 100% honest with you. If it was just freshly installed on there, you might just say it's going to be on there for a long time because the amount of work that it will take to remove it off of a boat is going to require extensive sanding, and buffing, and polishing. Because remember, now you're sanding, and the sanding is going to destroy everything. And you're going to start from ground zero to have to bring it back.
So you would have to almost start with like, what grit would you start with?
Honestly, 1,000 grit wouldn't even touch it.
Really?
Yeah. You know how much paper you'll go through? You're sanding glass off a surface.
Wow.
Yes.
So you did, yeah.
Yeah. So
sandpaper doesn't even work on glass.
Yeah, so you'll have to go more aggressive. The problem is there's minimal room for error when it comes to ceramic coating. So you need to be a professional to do it, or you need to know what you're doing and do the research. So if you're a detailer in the industry just going around ceramic coating boats, you're just opening up yourself for probably a good lawsuit down the road.
Wow, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because if you mess that up, then especially this guy. Not saying 150-foot boats probably in a different situation for a lot of people. Most people are going to be like the 25 or 30-foot boat range.
Yeah, smaller.
But still, you put some of these boats are $250,000, $300,000, and you just put a coating on there and makes it all look. You just ruin somebody's investment.
Yeah, here's the crazy thing about the ceramic coating. Detailers will do a ceramic install. A ceramic install. Okay, doing a ceramic install, that is like the boat is a brand new boat. It's a 2024. And hey, I got a brand new boat. I want to get it ceramic coated. Just because the boat is brand new does not mean the boat doesn't require any work.
Right.
If there's holograms and swirl marks on the boat, bring it to the owner's attention. Hey, I know it's a new boat, but we did an assessment of the boat, and here, after inspecting the surface, there's some things that we should take care of before we do the install. It will cost you an additional, whatever the case may be, $1,000, $2,000 go through the whole boat and buffer and correct it. Let the owner know. No, this is what will happen. Show up, see the boat. Oh, it's a new boat. Prep it. Put the coating on. Leave.
Now you got spots.
Now you have holograms and imperfections and things all over the boat. The boat is ceramic coated, but the owner wasn't given the option to say, hey, it requires some correction.
You can't see this right now, but once we put the coating on there, you're going to see.
So the price of the coating, right? So doing a ceramic install, the price varies depending on what needs to take place. So that's what the big misunderstanding is. People think that, oh, I call the company, they can ceramic coat my boat for this amount, but sometimes they're not going to do all the work that it requires. So they need to assess the boat, make sure that it's up to standard, to where when the coating is on there, it's not an eyesore, but at the same time, they're giving that quality service. So the coating will obviously be actively working on the boat if it's installed properly, but if cosmetically there's things that will show up.
Yeah, once you get it on there.
Yes.
All right, so Timorin Paffenberger, I guess, said, my dad just bought a boat. Here we go. So, well, I don't know if this is
that's fine.
Say buy a boat. We don't know if this is a new boat or a used boat. The person who had it before him pulled off some giant stickers that were on the hull. It looks like something put on a layer of gloss/wax on it. It looks like something put on a layer of gloss/wax on it before they took off the stickers. Now you can see and feel the outline. I was wondering what was the best way to make it go away. Keep up the videos. Love learning, thanks, and listening. Awesome.
So the first thing to consider is how old is the boat? What year is the boat? Because that's going to play a big factor. If the boat's been detailed, multiple times over the period of, say 5 or 10 years, you're working with a thin layer of gel coat.
Yep.
And in order to not compromise what you have left, you have to take that in consideration. Is that shadowing really bothering you enough to where it needs to be gone? Can you cover it with the decal, or do you really want to get into sanding, buffing, and polishing? So you have to assess this. You have to make a decision based on what you want, but also be realistic on what can take place.
Yeah, something that we probably should have said a while ago is that gel coat has a thickness. So different boat brand, like you've got a boat like you got a CV or whatever, and here's a boat that's got really thick gel coat. Then you've got other cheaper boats that they're cheaper for a reason, and your gel coats, you've got very little gel coat. You get on there, start sanding, and you sand right through the gel coat. So that also plays a big factor in what's really possible. So you kind of need to go find, an inconspicuous spot like on the back corner or something where you can sand a little bit and see, how thick, can I even do what's even possible, like you said.
Yeah, so, I always try to provide some, resolutions for, customers or friends or whoever may come across an issue. If I can help them, I do. And it was a situation where it needs to, listen, the best option on this boat, do a nice decal on the side, cover it, or wrap the hull, Or if it doesn't bother you enough, you can probably buff it out to get it to a point and polish it and then wax it to where when you look at it, unless you're really close to it, you will not be able to see it. Like the shadowing is going to be minimal.
Right.
So you can get it to a point, but will you ever get it perfect? Probably not.
Probably not.
Unless you repaint it.
Engine Noise says cleaning non-skid decking.
Non-skid decking, my favorite. Non-skid, again, it's going to just be what are you cleaning? The tools you need, obviously deck brush, deck cleaner, and then do you need to get into power washing? It ultimately depends on how dirty your deck is. If you're dealing with fish blood, if you're dealing with grease, if you're dealing with dirt off shoes and stuff like that. Things commonly used tools. First, a deck brush. You could even, if you have a couple spots here and there, magic eraser, you have a couple scuff marks. And then you also, if you want to do a sealant on your non-skid deck, you can. They have sealants out there that you can use on it to keep it protected because it is gel coat. Yeah. And if it's not protected, it will oxidize. And sometimes the reason why your deck is dirty is because it has no form of protection, so everything adheres to it easily.
Yeah, and over time it gets even worse because because like you're saying, gel coat is porous. It will suck in stuff. So you get fish blood on there and there's nothing on there. That gel coat is sucking in that fish blood. So now you got to figure out, you got to try and scrub it out, and that can get that can get difficult.
Yes, very difficult.
And then you then you use bleach, and bleach works. But now that bleach just took off. So
strips your wax,
takes off all your gel. It's taking off pieces of gel coat basically. So, and then non-skid, because I'm assuming he's talking about the non-skid, like the sand. You sprinkle the sand on there.
So on the sand non-skid, be very careful. If you are pressure cleaning that, you can pressure clean it off because it's a textured sand.
Yep.
So most cases, the least aggressive cleaning method on that type of finish is going to be the best. If it's gel coat, diamond patterned non-skid, you can be aggressive with it. You can use a pressure washer. You're not going to harm it.
Right.
But if it's a sand, sanded non-skid with that texture, it's not easy to work with, not easy to clean. And you can get it really clean, but it's just you have to be patient, use the right chemicals, and just take your time.
For sure. So, this one's probably your favorite. So Eric Davey wants to know, best way to clean SeaDek without a pressure washer.
All right, SeaDek without a pressure washer is going to require elbow grease. Is going to require a deck brush, water, and then you can use, depending on what type.
What are you cleaning off?
Yeah, what you're cleaning off. Believe it or not, many people don't. You have a decontamination spray, which is an iron remover spray. You can use that. And what it'll do is it'll help lift some of the contaminants off of the SeaDek, depending on what it's on there.
So when you say that,
for example, it's a commonly used for like paint and cars and stuff. But the iron spray, depending if you have dirt or grime or whatever the case may be, if you spray it on a spot, say if you're gonna get some rust on your SeaDek, can you use rust remover? Yeah, you can use it, but you need to rinse it off. But if you get rust on your SeaDek, if you spray the iron spray on there, it will actually lift that rust up off of it without damaging the SeaDek.
So then you could brush it off with a boat soap and a deck brush.
Yes. So depending on what you're cleaning, without using a pressure washer, that will be the option. Now, a pressure washer is going to be essential because when you're cleaning the SeaDek, it has grain, and it's because it's like that type of foam. The problem is the dirt gets embedded. So sometimes you may clean the top layer of dirt, but because it just stacks up layers upon layers of dirt, if you're at a pressure clean, you can see a big difference in the color change. So you can, say if you have a gray SeaDek and you pressure clean an area, you'll see it just turn like there's a really light gray versus that darker gray.
You're taking the color out.
Because what you're doing is that dirt was so embedded in the SeaDek that in order to really clean it efficiently, that power from the water, you don't want to be too close because you can damage the deck. And want to use the right tip. And that's why I said 2,000 PSI is more than sufficient.
Right.
Because if you go any higher, you're going to damage. You're going to start to damage the boat or whatever may be on it. I know a pressure washer doesn't sound like it's an option, but sometimes with SeaDek, it does require.
You don't have an option.
Well, sometimes with SeaDek, you don't have an option, and that's going to be probably one of the better resolutions. Now, you have to be careful when you're power washing because, unfortunately, with SeaDek, if that water pressure gets underneath, it will start to lift it. And I know that's one of the common issues that people have with it coming unglued. If they power wash, they get too close, and then the power of the water pushes underneath the deck, causing it to come up.
That goes back to what we were talking about earlier about being up north in the heat. You're in
SeaDek
70 degrees. SeaDek lasts you 15, 20 years.
Yeah, down here, you're lucky to get 3 out of it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, what happens is it gets so hot and that glue just melts. And then and then over time, it just wants to lift up. And then, it's beautiful when the boat's done. But the SeaDek, it's between
the glue, the adhesive.
Yes, between the maintenance of cleaning it, if you're someone that uses your boat and you fish a lot and you constantly have to scrub it, I mean, you can seal it. They have different, protection that you can put on it to give it that hydrophobic and that protection layer. But it's just constant maintenance on the deck. And then the best thing to do is just not to wear any type of shoes, especially black sole shoes.
Oh yeah,
on your sea deck, because you will mark it up.
Yeah, and there's no, once that glue starts lifting up, there's no like.
Yeah, I've done sea deck removal before. It's not a fun process. If you consider putting on your boat, just think twice about how much do you really want it, because if you're in Florida,
and where do you live?
Yeah, how bad do you want to put sea deck on your boat, and where do you live? Because those two things are going to make you want to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, because there's tons of boats. It's so nice to have it.
Yes.
But like, if you live in Orlando, then you're never gonna have a problem. But if you live in the Caribbean, like there's back to the education. You need to understand what you're getting yourself into. Because say you keep your boat on a lift and you got a full boat cover.
Yes, that's a big difference.
Right now in September, that cover, it's like an oven in there. It could be 150 degrees inside that boat, and that glue is just sitting there in an oven,
getting baked.
That's funny. So Eric Davey also wants to know best way to remove blood stains without compound or cleaner wax.
Blood stain is an interesting one. Obviously, what removes blood stain the most is going to be traditionally your peroxide.
Okay.
You would never think about it. I mean,
hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah. I mean, if that's going to be the best option to remove blood stain. Now on a boat. Obviously, I wouldn't say bleach. Anything that has bleach.
You hate
in
saying
it.
Bleach.
Yeah, I don't like saying, because here's the thing.
Everybody hears bleach and they go right. Here's a gallon.
It's contradicting, because you tell people not to do it, but you should just maintain the boat and clean the boat and wax the boat. And then when you have an issue when you go fishing, the blood will not adhere as easily.
Right.
The idea is obviously preventive maintenance, but if you come across the issue where the boat is chalked out, even if you clean it, the next time you go fishing, the blood's going to stick again.
Yep. Because that gel coat's sucking it
in. Yes.
Yeah. So either bleach or hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah. So
but then after you do that, you need some wax on there.
Correct. So on the deck, they have that woody wax, or they have they have the polymer sealant deck protection that you can put on your boat, and read the bottle. Read the instructions. I mean, it's simple. People don't read, and that's where things go wrong. On the woody wax for the deck, you can apply it on the deck, but you need to rinse it until it's not slippery.
Right.
It's a little bit goes a long ways, and what this does is it just puts a protective layer on the actual gel on the deck, which is either diamond or the non-skin. That makes it harder for blood or fish gut to stick. And it works great, because if you're someone that goes fishing every day, and just to make the cleanup easier on you when you come back, you're not fighting with having to use aggressive cleaners and then risking messing up the finish of the boat. If you bleach or degreaser on your floor to clean, then you're gonna have that splash all over the gunnel walls, and it's going to create more of a mess and deteriorate the boat. So if once you get your deck clean and you put a form of protection on it, next time you use the boat, you won't require aggressive. The idea is to stay away from aggressive cleaners.
Use your wash down pump.
Yes.
Wash that as soon as you get the fish in the box. Come back with the wash down. Just spray all that blood out the boat.
That's the best thing to do, is just keep the blood off the boat.
Well, I mean, the blood's going to be on the boat, but get it off while it's wet.
Yes, while it's wet. Don't let it bake and get penetrated in there. Yes.
Owen Smith says, how to repair deep spider and stress cracks, which is back to gel coat. That's
I mean, if you're talking about repairing deep fiberglass scratches, fiberglass and gel coat. Okay, so fiberglass is a little more forgiving. Now gel coat, if you take care of that area, you get it to a certain point, you can re-gel coat it. But if you're talking about like some damage to the fiberglass, you're talking about grinding.
Yeah, you're talking about repair, not maintenance.
You're talking about repair, not maintenance. And anything having to do with cracks on a boat, for example, like if you have cracks on your gunnels or cracks on certain areas, it's from stress. And there's a high possibility that if that is repaired and you don't get to the root cause of what caused it, it will probably come back in time.
Scratching for Stacks wants to know, how are you so patient? Because I tell you, you got to be patient to do that. I mean, because it's a lot.
My patience, really comes from my passion. Everything I do, I'm passionate about. My background in hospitality for 9 years, dealing with people from all over the world. But in addition to that, I have a passion for things just being clean, neat, and pristine.
Yeah.
So everything I touch, I treat as my own, and that to me is what keeps me motivated and driven. So my patience is because I know that all good things come in time. You can't rush the process. And if I was to rush through my job, then I wouldn't be efficient, I wouldn't be good, and I wouldn't stay in business.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a lot of hungry kids then. All right. So Jason Woolard, this is a good one.
Yeah.
So this is a good question. So, is it a good idea to paint a hull with all grip or wet sand and restore the process? On a cost basis approach, which would you go with, depending on the situation of the boat? Would it be better wet sand and compound and clean, or just to go ahead and repaint the boat or wrap it?
Okay, so as far as cost-wise, first and foremost thing, a wrap is going to probably be the best option, because now you're not getting into labor, and then it's straightforward on how much it's going to cost. A wrap could be $3,000 to $5,000, and up, depending on
how big your boat
is.
What's the hull look like?
If you consider detailing, you have to consider the material, the time, and the knowledge that you're going to need to do a job to where you're going to probably be happy with. But you're also going to have to take things into consideration of how much gel coat you have to work with and how far you need to go, because if you're not educated on how to sand and do a restore, if you know how to, then that's probably going to be your best option. But if you do not know how, and it's going to be a experiment, and you don't have that time, and you're going to also have to invest money as well into this, then a wrap, is probably going to be a better option. Now, if you don't like the idea of a wrap, then probably paint. But if you do a paint job, it's going to get costly. It's going to be really costly to do a nice paint job. So budget is going to play a factor, and also, time. So if you want to do detail on your own, time and resources, if you're going to do a wrap, it's straightforward. You know how much it's going to cost, and someone's going to do all the work, and you're going to get to enjoy your boat. If you do a paint job, just be ready to pay out of pocket of what it's going to cost.
So it's almost like it'd probably be wrap's going to be the cheapest, wet sand and restoration, depending on, what, if you got paint or gel coat, and then finally paint, because paint's going to be the most expensive.
Yes.
For sure.